Well, for better or worse, IndyCar finally did their $1 million challenge at Thermal, and we're here to talk about it. Welcome to the Big Motor Small Blade YouTube channel. If this is your first time checking us out, normally we do NASCAR and local short track racing content, but here, today, I'm going to be talking about the IndyCar race at Thermal. Well, it was IndyCar's reintroduction of the type of all-star format that NASCAR does every year. I don't believe they've run a non-points event since about 2008 down in Melbourne, if I remember correctly. So this is pretty new for most of the field, or very new for most of the field, and I don't know, did it work? All right, I guess first things first, we'll talk about the racetrack itself. Thermal seems like a really, really fun track to drive. In fact, probably my favorite part of the entire weekend was watching them push it in practice and qualifying. It was really fun, especially with the extra push to, not extra, but having push to pass in practice and qualifying. It was pretty engaging to watch. You know, I mean, I remember they hung on Joseph Newgarden for a handful of laps there, and he biffed it coming into, I don't remember, corner 8 or 12 or 57 or whatever. There's like 900 corners at Thermal, so I think the track looked like a lot of fun to drive, but unfortunately, it's significant. Like, it's just way too busy for it to really put on some great racing. And that's not to say that there wasn't any good racing today, but ultimately, I think it's probably a little bit too busy of a racetrack. Great for its, actual target audience, but I don't know if it's really what we're looking for an IndyCar track. All right, now to talk about the format for the actual race. I feel like we started getting off on the wrong foot around qualifying time because it didn't make much sense to me personally to have each group already determined. It would have made more sense in my eyes to just send them all out like a normal qualifying session. I don't know if maybe that wasn't plausible due to the infrastructure at Thermal. I'm not really sure, but it seemed like Group B had a little bit of an advantage, and obviously they weren't competing with each other until you get past the heats, and then whoever had the fastest lap won, and pretty much everyone picked up in the second session, I believe. I know Palou obviously did, but maybe it's just down to Alex Palou. Maybe it wasn't that big of a deal. I don't know. Still would have been. I feel like it would have been more interesting to do a typical IndyCar qualifying session in that case, because a typical IndyCar qualifying session is one of the highlights of the weekend on a road course. So I felt like that was kind of missing. Next, with the format, I feel like we definitely need to do some sort of last chance qualifier event that you see at specifically the NASCAR All-Star Race, but typically at like any local short tracks, dirt, pavement, whatever. You'll see kind of a last chance qualifying race after the main heats. I feel like that would have been interesting because you would have had Scott Dixon involved in that. I think that would have added to the entertainment factor, and that's really what this race is. It's purely entertainment factor. So, yeah, and clearly they can fit more cars than 12 on the racetrack at a time. Each heat, I believe, had at least 13 cars. So we could fit 14 on there. We could have a past champions provisional if we wanted it. You could argue whether or not we need it. I would argue that if I'm paying a bunch of money to go watch an IndyCar race, I definitely want Scott Dixon in it, if at all possible, since he's been the best driver of the past 20 years. So I don't know, maybe look into that later. As far as the first segment of the race goes, I'd love to find a way to actually incentivize the drivers running hard in the first segment. I know obviously it strategically does make sense to save your tires and have them ready for the next segment. But are we so broke in a race that we're giving out $1.7 million in prize money that we can't afford tires? Is that really what we want to do? Like, I don't really get it. The race was pretty much over by the time lap 13 hit. McLaughlin really couldn't do anything. There wasn't really anything he could do at that point. So yeah, the only battle from that, it did kind of create the most interesting part of the race. I will give it that. Colton Herta running 90 seconds slower in the first 10 laps than everybody else really allowed that exciting, interesting finish as far as in the midfield to go. But ultimately, I think everyone's really kind of looking for something more up front. But I don't know. we can keep that in mind. Lastly, on the format, I don't know if it was an NBC thing or what, but the whole event I think only took like 2.5 hours. So I don't really see why we needed a 20-minute time limit on the heats. Maybe if you wanted to make it a 30-minute time limit. If you're going to have a 10-lap heat where caution laps don't count, but then you also cut the race short if they go any over 20 minutes, and the lap time there was about 1:40, I believe. So you're cutting it really close. If you have any incidents whatsoever, you're probably going to go over that 20-minute time limit. So it kind of just seems a little counterintuitive, if it to me. So maybe we could just scrap that altogether. Seems kind of wasteful. All right, now getting into the actual proceedings itself, we're past practice and qualifying. Literally, the first moment of the heat race, Colton Herta lags back 2 car lengths on Scott Dixon and pretty much flat out jumped the start. And really, it really led to the collision between Scott Dixon and Roman Grosjean in turn 1 that unfortunately took out Rinus VeeKay as well, an completely innocent bystander. Well, I mean, so was Roman Grosjean. He didn't do anything. Scott Dixon was penalized for this. I mean, rightfully so. He completely cleaned him out. But it completely baffled me why Colton Herta wasn't also penalized for this. I mean, clearly lagged back 2 car lengths and dropped the start. I don't really understand it. Really caused the incident to begin with, in my eyes. So yeah, I don't really understand that one. All right, Dixon also said in that Grosjean faded way to the right, and when I saw the replay, it didn't really look like that to me. It looked like Dixon didn't even try and really shoot the gap. He only went up like a quarter car length on him and kind of just cleaned him out. I'll usually give Scott Dixon the benefit of the doubt since he's, Scott freaking Dixon. But I don't know about that one. Just kind of maybe take the L on that one, Scott. Felix Rosenqvist won the first heat race. Here's the finishing order for that. Alex Palou won the second heat race. Here's the finishing order for that. All right, now to the actual meat of the sandwich here, the actual race. Like I said earlier in the format section, we really definitely should find some way to make the first segment of this race. I almost called it a stage, but the first segment of this race more enjoyable, more interesting. Just we need to do something. And normally I wouldn't harp on this too much. Like we see early in an IndyCar race tons of times where guys just kind of save fuel, save tires, and that's all well and good because it's actually a long it's a proper full race. In an all-star race that's 20 laps long, I don't really want to see half of the race be guys just hanging on, or not hanging on, just holding off, not running hard so they can run hard later. I get it. I understand the strategy. I'm not blaming the teams for this. It made total sense. It did make total sense. But I don't know. Do we not have extra tires? Could we have not brought alternate tires? Is there a reason for that? I don't understand it. All right, now to the actual final segment of the race. Colton Herta, who, yes, was the main guy, who I don't believe should have been in the actual $1 Million Challenge final race anyway, but he was, and played the game early in the race and made a charge through the field at the end. And that was by far the most interesting part of the race. I think the second most interesting thing was the battle between Alexander Rossi and Joseph Newgarden. Those two got into it a bit. That was pretty fun to watch. Definitely some hip checks being thrown there. Good time all around. Herta came up and passed both of them, obviously. But yeah, so that part of it was fun. There's nothing necessarily wrong with the most fun part of the race being 4th, 5th on back. That's fine. But you definitely have to hope that happens when Alex Palou gets out front, because he just turns into, freaking Max Verstappen as soon as he gets in the lead. All right, so ultimately, in conclusion, the whole point of this wasn't really for, pure entertainment's sake. Obviously the main point of this was to get some money flowing into IndyCar, hopefully, from these rich Thermal Club customers or patrons or however, club members. So if they can do that, if that actually finds a way to actually happen, then this weekend is a success. And if that's the case, no reason not to do it again. Obviously, if this doesn't work, I don't even mind the idea of it. I wouldn't mind doing it at a track that maybe makes more, like, is a better racetrack. Maybe in the future this could be a month of May thing. Get rid of the actual Grand Prix of Indianapolis. Maybe do it there. I know that's not the greatest racetrack ever, but it would be maybe a little bit better than what we have. I don't know. But anyway, next up is Long Beach on the schedule, and we'll have another recap after that. So thank you for watching. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Be sure to tune into the Big Motor Small Blade podcast for all your NASCAR content needs. And be sure to watch On Tour with Chase Folsom, and if you want to watch anything about the Cars Tour. So, adios.